understanding this history not only helps us to understand where we come from, but it also helps to define us as Canadians. And that's why I'm very pleased to be here today. Every veteran who fought for Canada deserves to be able to share their stories so that all Canadians, not only today, but in the future, can remember what it is that they've sacrificed. Now, unfortunately, through the passage of time, these stories are being lost. And I'll say this to the great, perhaps embarrassment, maybe disgrace is too strong of a word, but Canada failed at this mission with the First World War generation. But we should learn from that, and we should not let that happen with the Second World War generation, those who fought in Korea, and with present-day members of the Canadian Armed Forces. So we want to make sure that the lessons of the lost stories of the First World War doesn't happen with all the other conflicts that Canada has been involved in. So that's why Prime Minister Harper and our government are very proud to support the work of the Historic Dominion Institute-led project, the Memory Project. Tremendously successful project. You know, the federal government, we spend a lot of money on a lot of things. And for the amount of money that is going to this project and these projects, for the good that it does, and frankly for the respect that it shows for those who serve, for you to be able to choose and tell your stories in the way in which you choose to tell them is essential. Welcome, Senator Yonah Martin.
Thank you, Jeremy, and Minister Moore, Minister Raitt, Mark Adler, MP, distinguished guests, and of course, our honored veterans. 안녕하세요, 반갑습니다. As Jeremy mentioned, I am Korean-born, born in Seoul, where our Canadians and the United Nations forces defended, recaptured, redefended Seoul multiple times. And this year was the 60th anniversary of the Battle of Gapyeong, where our Canadians, once again, so heroic, defended that front line, and which really affected the outcome of the war. Had Canadians not done what you do so well, which is to fight valiantly and defend people's freedoms, we would not be here today. And I know that I would not have been born. So for me personally, it's such an honor to be able to work with the project.
The current institute of raising public awareness and of our history and of improving our civil literacy is most worthy of our support. I want to make a special account to say that I wish to congratulate Minister Moore and Canadian Heritage for their wise and timely backing. Mr. Minister, I can think of no other project more worthy of your support. I agree with everything you said from my long experience with our young people. Now I'd like to do something a little bit unusual in closing. I want to thank the creators of the Dominion Institute, Rudyard Griffith, Eric Pence, and Michael Chong, for their vision, their courage, and for their significant contribution to Canada, our great country. Thank you.
Details here. I come from a military family, and both my grandfathers were in the WW1. My granddad, Finney, went on to be the writing master at the Royal Military College, and he worked there until 1924. My father and 6 uncles were all in WW2. My father was wounded twice while over there, but that didn't stop him. He was one of the first Canadians to head to Korea when he came back after his long-term ability to get back on his feet. And I was born in 1932 in Kingston. Of course, I joined the Royal Canadian Corps of Signals, and I see a beautiful picture back there of some of the boys in the 81st Field Regiment with General Dillard. My training, then they shipped me to Korea. And when I got there, I was just 20 and turned 21. My son also, he flew Hercules in the Gulf War. One time I was sent to Seoul to take a member to the detention barracks. On the way back, the driver went over the 30-foot embankment. He'd fallen asleep at the wheel. We had to get a wrecker to get us up. And Korea in those days was all bush, hardly any trees. But sure enough, here was one tree there. So when we called the wrecker, he came and by himself in a great big truck threw this hook around the tree and over the embankment, got our truck and got it halfway up, and down came the tree. So that was, I got them down tree-wise. At any rate, we had to get another record, and he witched on, and they finally got us out. Now, that, we were very lucky because nobody was hurt in the misfortune.
I've been with the Institute, as Jeremy has pointed out, for 10 years now, and I've talked to thousands of students, and I've learned that they don't want the stories of the blood and guts. They like a little bit of show and tell, and I've talked from grade 1s up to university students. And I found that one of the things they really enjoy is learning why we salute and how to salute. Can you picture grade 1 students standing at attention, trying to stand as tall as they can, with their faces like this? And they do a proper salute. And the reason I teach them the salute is because I tell them now when you see a veteran, and you'll know a veteran because they wear medals, you can walk up to that veteran and salute the veteran and say, thank you for your service.
Well, I'm a veteran. I was in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and I was on loan to the RAF. I was with a Coastal Command Squadron, 547. I was part of the Battle of the Atlantic, as well as defending convoys, etc., etc., and even over to an island called Bornholm, which is due south of Sweden, where the Germans had invented midget submarines with a crew of 2 that were very fast and very maneuverable. And we did a couple of trips there doing that. And I'm very proud of what I was doing, and the fact that I visit many, many schools today. I love talking to teenagers about the wars and about Canada and why I'm so proud of it. I was born in Canada in 1923, and I'm very lucky to be 88 years of age and still have some hair. Thanks very much.
Yeah, well, Project Memory means a lot to me because I'm new on the computer because of my age, and I finally mastered it, but now I can see in the future, people can see people like me in the Memory Project and hear their stories and get a feel for what they went through, mostly in their younger years. What the Memory Project doesn't show is, it shows the veteran telling the story, but doesn't tell what happened to him, you know, when he's in his 80s. Frailty, can't walk, etc., stuff like that. But that's to be understandable because what we really want to know is how they got into the war, how it affected them, and what occurred when they were there. And without that verbal history, it will be lost. Eventually it will be lost. And now I'm very happy that they do have this project so that veterans can be heard. He wants to stay away from the grimy stuff. And don't ever kid yourself. In all the world wars in Korea, it was grimy at times. There were good times too, but you know, you were there for a year, volunteer, and you had to survive. And 516 didn't make it. You know, they were killed in action. And the Memory Project, to me anyway, tells the stories of the survivors. That's what's important at the present time.
What moment during the war touched you the most? What moment during the war touched you the most? That's lived with you since the war.
Touched me the most was when I got the news on the grapevine that two of my buddies had been killed. It took about maybe 2 weeks before we knew there were people killed, because you have different battalions and different companies on different hills, and it filters down, word of mouth more or less. That such and such a person had been killed in action. And I had two buddies of mine that lived on the same street in the same little town, Base Bay, Nova Scotia. They were killed, and I went to school with them. And it affected me quite a bit, but it really affected me when I had children, their age. When I had two children, they became 20 years old, and it hit me. It said how their father must have felt when they got the news in that small town in Cape Breton that their son had been killed in action. That's when it really hits you, and it never leaves you after that. You know, you keep thinking, like, when I left, I just waved at my mother and said, I'll see you in a year. You know, now I know what she was going through. If it had been one of my kids over there. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, it'd be hard. But she was very stoic, and I guess so was I. We weren't a touchy-feely family, like, you know. But I just went, and I imagine every night of the week she was terrified, you know. And I can understand that, because I would be the same way if I had similar circumstances.
Very excellent. Yeah, because as some minister mentioned, before, because young generation, they don't know about, they don't respect the veterans, all right. So this project for them, learn more about the veterans, how they freedom is not free, right? Without them, couldn't survive, us. So it's very good. Most important thing is this project. Excellent.
Did you serve in Korea?
I served in Korea, Navy. Navy.
Was there anything during the war that
No, I didn't participate, during the war. But as you know, that in Korea still that's mandatory, serving in military, right?
Yes.
So I had served about 3 years and a half.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's an excellent project, this one.
This is about showing respect to those veterans who fought in the Second World War and in the Korean War. So we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to tell their stories of service, courage, sacrifice, and commitment to Canada. And I think for too long, veterans haven't had an opportunity to speak and to tell their stories as they want to. And so this project is about ending that.
Thank you very much.
Words of support. We're very happy that you're able not only to share your story, but to continue going into school.
Attacked the South on the 25th of June in 1950. They caught the Americans and the South Koreans by surprise, and they just marched right down the peninsula. And the American forces and their allies were hanging on by their fingernails around Busan. I think they had about a 30-mile perimeter. And then General MacArthur pulled off a stroke of military genius. He put together an armada of 330 warships and attacked at Incheon. 4 months after the war started, those Marines dashed across the peninsula, trapping the North Koreans in the south. And then they marched north to the Yalu River. But let me ask a question. Where do you get 330 warships in 4 months? Minister, I think you'll agree to get a desk for a new government employee. It takes you 6 months. Truth is, most of those warships were Japanese warships and Japanese crews. General MacArthur had insisted in 1945, when the Japanese forces surrendered, that that fleet be maintained, the warships and their crews, because he wanted to fight Russia. He was itching for that fight, and that's why he and Harry S. Truman had that big conflict between them, and he ended up talking to the two houses in Washington with his famous words, "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away." The thought I leave with my students is this: why have our Canadian soldiers fought so many battles for so many years? And have you noticed that in the last century and in this century, all those battles have been elsewhere in the world, and over 100,000 Canadians have paid the supreme sacrifice. And in that period of time, not one died defending Canadian soil. We all stopped the tyrants and the enemies and the bad guys elsewhere in the world. When anybody says to me, "What are we doing in Afghanistan?" You're darn right we should be in Afghanistan so that you can sleep comfortably here at night. And on my watch, all Canadians have enjoyed peace to the point that they forgot what freedoms they had. Remembrance is more than November the 11th. Those 100,000 men and women paid the supreme sacrifice so we can live in peace. Our job now is to pay the price to maintain that peace.